or you are involved in caring for children? If yes, then listen to Ask the Pediatricians every Thursday by 10 a.m. for insightful discussion on popular child health topics such as dangerous child health practices, immunization, infant feeding, developmental milestones, and so much more. You also get to ask questions on these topics and listen to answers to real-life child health issues by a pediatrician. Ask the Pediatricians Foundation is devoted to health education and information of parents and caregivers of children in the community to support you in raising healthy children. Don't miss Ask the Pediatricians with Dr. Gani because it's informative, educative, and interactive. Ask the Pediatricians Hour, the program for caring parents.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a fresh episode of Ask the Pediatrician Hour. I am Bemisola Boede, and it is my pleasure to be here today and to discuss with us another important topic that affects the health of our children. So, I want to thank you on whichever platform you are joining me today, whether on Facebook or YouTube or our Instagram live or even on our Fresh Waves Radio platform as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. And today we're going to be talking about something so important. Recently in Lagos State, Nigeria, we are having experiencing an outbreak of cholera disease, and this has been going on for the past 2 weeks, and lots of parents understandably are worried and anxious about it, and we've got some questions as well about it. So today I'm going to be telling us everything that you need to know as far as cholera is concerned. So make sure that you don't go anywhere. Make sure you stay tuned with us so that you can learn more about this important condition, and more importantly, how we can prevent it and how you can avoid your child from getting cholera. This program is brought to you by Ask the Pediatricians Foundation. Ask the Pediatrician Foundation, we're committed to the health and to the well-being of all children globally, but especially in Nigeria and sub-Saharan Africa, where majority of our children are still dying from preventable causes. Thank you so much for joining me. I am Bimisola Boyde, and I'm a pediatrician and CEO Ask the Pediatricians Foundation. I just want to let you know that if you have any questions after this program, you are welcome to post your question on our Facebook group, Ask the Pediatricians Foundation Facebook group, and we are there 24/7 and to answer your questions. So except on Sundays, so 24/6 mostly. So you can post your questions on our Facebook group, and we will try our best to answer them as soon as possible. And you can also watch past episodes on this same platform you're watching on Facebook or on our YouTube channel on Access to Gaming ATP podcast. The episodes that have been discussed in the past, they are always available and you can always watch them. So thank you so much for joining us today. So I'm just, without much ado, I'm just going to go straight into the topic of today, cholera. This cholera, everybody's talking about cholera, and why is it important for us to talk about cholera? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So cholera disease. So for those of you who can see me, you can definitely see the topic on the background. So what is cholera? So cholera is it's a diarrhea disease. It's a form of those diarrhea disease, and I'm sure most of us are familiar that children have diarrhea. Most of us have had diarrhea ourselves, and we don't see it as a big deal most of the time. However, why do we now need to talk about cholera, and why is it a big deal? Why is it being declared as an epidemic? Why is everybody talking about it? And that's because cholera even though it's a diarrhea disease, it is one of those ones that can kill within hours if untreated. So that is why cholera is an important condition to talk about. People can die from cholera. Just as I was coming online now, I went through the news and I saw that in Lagos State, as of today, about 29 people already have died from this cholera outbreak that just started 2 weeks ago. 29 people have died from from cholera, and a lot of people, also over 500 people, have been hospitalized. And I'm talking of just Lagos State, Nigeria. I don't know what the statistics are for other states in the country. So this is a very serious illness. An illness that can kill people is definitely serious. So it is important that we all know about cholera. Unfortunately, cholera is not a disease that we should be talking about in 21st century, and it's really, really a shame that we're still having outbreaks of cholera in our countries. It is really not, shouldn't be happening, because cholera is a disease of poverty. It means that people don't have access to adequate water and sanitation. That is what it means. So if we have access to safe water and proper sanitation, people will not have cholera, because cholera tends to come from contaminated food, contaminated water, from uh, feces. So it's a disease of poverty. So the fact that we have an outbreak in Lagos right now is a source of concern to many of us as doctors, and even to many of us as citizens, because it shows that we are not getting a good grip on basic things like safe water and sanitation. And it's not surprising that it happens in Lagos, because Lagos is one of the most rapidly developing states in Nigeria. So there's a lot of urbanization. Everybody is coming to Lagos, and when people come to Lagos, they don't always have access to where they're going to stay. So people, are just all over the place. So there are a lot of slums, and of course, which means there's inadequate access to basic sanitation, inadequate access to safe water, and all these things are what is leading to the outbreak of cholera. In places where they have conflicts, people are becoming internally displaced or refugees, and they have to go into camps, and some of them don't have good access to to hygiene and water. So definitely they are going to end up having cholera. We think there may be some contribution from climate changes as well. So every year, a lot of cholera outbreak do happen. It's not only in Nigeria, all over the world. Sometimes it can be between 1 to 4 million cases of cholera every year. That is what researchers have shown us, and up to 21,000 to 143,000 deaths, every year from cholera. So this is a killer disease. This is a disease that is a killer disease, and it's really a disease that should not be killing people. We should not even be having this disease at all. We shouldn't be having it, because it's something that is so easily preventable with just basic hygiene, good hygiene, basic water supply. So that is what uh, that's why we should not be having cholera cases. Luckily, most of the cases are mild, so people just have diarrhea. They may not even know they have cholera. They will just vomit, have the diarrhea, and some people don't even have any symptoms, and it just go away. Those who have mild symptoms, just giving them ORS, oral rehydration, just like we treat every case of diarrhea, some of you are familiar with already, they'll be fine. But unfortunately, some people have severe form of cholera disease, and the severe cases tend to get dehydrated, go into shock, and those are the ones that may die without treatment. Luckily, we have treatment for cholera. So we have the antibiotics, and of course, sometimes we have to give intravenous fluid. So for those people who are really vomiting too rapidly, or who are, passing water too rapidly, that we can be using oral rehydration to get things under control quickly, we have to put them on IV intravenous rehydration and antibiotics, and then they will get better. So those are the people that we have. Otherwise, if we don't do that, they are going to die. So we have severe cases of cholera, and those are the ones that we need um, antibiotics and intravenous fluid. Just to let you know, again, cholera is a preventable, treatable disease. So I'm still giving us an overview. I'm still going to go into the details. So cholera is preventable. Just making sure we have good, safe water that is safe for drinking or potable, water that does not been contaminated by the cholera bacteria, and hygiene. Sanitation, those are the things that is important and very, very critical to preventing and controlling transmission of cholera. Because I see a lot of mothers that quickly come to our Facebook group and Dr. Baby, I want to get cholera vaccine, take cholera vaccine because there's cholera outbreak and I don't want my child to have cholera. And I still tell mom the solution is not cholera vaccine. Of course, I'll still talk about where cholera vaccine comes in, but the solution is the hygiene, just making sure that the water that we give our children, the sanitation, we just pay attention to the most basic hygiene practices, and our children will not have cholera. So most people are having cholera because of poor sanitation, poor unsafe water, and all that. So if we can only do that, we don't need to be immunizing children against cholera at all. And so, but when there's an outbreak, of course, we are in a dilemma. When there's an outbreak, we're trying to get things quickly curtailed before it becomes an epidemic and many people die. So that is when we tend to use the vaccine. It's like a stopgap measure, it's like a quick fix measure. So, to prevent more people from having the cholera disease. So we immunize people in the places where there's an outbreak. And then, of course, we still pay attention to the hygiene and the water and the sanitation and all that. But that is only when we need cholera vaccine. We only need cholera vaccine during outbreaks, during epidemic, to quickly bring things under control. Routine cholera immunization is not recommended, and definitely not recommended for children. I see a lot of private hospitals giving children cholera vaccines as routine immunization. It is wrong practice. People are just after money. It is wrong practice. It is not recommended by WHO. It's not recommended by what its organization, UNICEF. It is wrong. It is not part of the Nigerian program on immunization. It is not part of any country's program on immunization. So I'm not sure why some of our private hospitals have put it into one of their own vaccine. They charge our mothers lots of thousands of naira for this immunization that is absolutely unnecessary. So please, there's no need for our children to take cholera vaccine. Cholera vaccine is only recommended when there's been an epidemic or an outbreak of cholera, like in those areas. So that is it. And of course, the World Health Organization is working so hard to bring cholera to an end. Like every other seniors, we always have all these targets. So 2030, we're already in 2024, so we have 6 years to get to the targets of reducing cholera deaths by 90%. So another one, nobody should be at least almost less than, you know, almost nobody should be dying from cholera. So that is a WHO target, and they're working towards it. All right, so that's just a kind of an overview. So let's now go into the topic properly. Okay, let's talk about what is cholera. So cholera is a diarrhea disease. It's one of those diarrhea diseases, and some of you have heard me talk about diarrhea illnesses in children. And one of the things we normally talk about is that diarrhea is usually in children mostly due to viruses. Okay, but cholera is one of those bacteria causes of diarrhea. So cholera is an acute diarrhea that is due to taking contaminated food and water that food and water that has been contaminated by this particular bacterium. The name of that bacterium, we call it Vibrio cholerae. So that is the name of that bacteria, but you don't worry yourself about twisting name Vibrio cholerae. That's the name of the bacterium that causes cholera. So if the water or the food you are going to eat already has been contaminated by the bacteria or the cholera bacteria, then that person is going to have acute diarrhea. due to cholera. So this is one, and if you remember, for those of you who are our returning viewers or listeners, we remember we always talk about the fact that most diarrhea don't require antibiotics because most of them are due to viruses. So things like rotavirus, those are the commonest cause of diarrhea in children. But we do have bacteria also causing diarrhea, and Vibrio cholerae, just like Shigella, just like Escherichia coli. Those are the kind of bacteria that can cause diarrhea as well. And the difference between diarrhea caused by viruses and diarrhea caused by bacteria is that diarrhea caused by bacteria require antibiotics treatment. Those are the only times that we give antibiotics, when the diarrhea is caused by bacteria. So I see a lot of mothers, we do give our children flagyl. Every child has diarrhea. People don't even give ORS. They don't give ORS, and the first thing they go and give is flagyl. That is wrong practice. The only time we are allowed to give antibiotics is if the diarrhea is caused by bacteria. And Vibrio cholerae is one of those bacteria that can cause diarrhea, and that is the cholera disease. So in this instance, we have to treat also with antibiotics. Luckily, it's not a common thing. It's a rare thing, it only tends to happen when there's an outbreak. It's not like the everyday kind of diarrhea that most children have. And cholera is a global threat. Like I said, it can kill. It's not like those kind of diarrhea that will say, "Oh, do nothing, just rehydrate the child." But cholera, apart from the fact that you are going to rehydrate the child will need antibiotics. And if we don't treat the child fast enough, and cholera can also affect adults, it's not only children. So let me just talk for everybody today. So if we don't treat diarrhea due to cholera quickly enough, he's going to kill the person, and the person can die within hours. It's not something that is going to happen. It's not one of those diseases that will happen over days or weeks or months. The person can die within hours of having this diarrhea illness. So that's why it's so important that for us to know more about bacteria. And but luckily for us, let's go and talk about the symptoms. Most people who have the infection with bacteria, they don't tend to have the severe symptoms. Most of them don't even have any symptoms. Most people that have diarrhea themselves may not know that they have that. Cholera. They don't know that they have the cholera because they are not having diarrhea, they are not vomiting, but they have the bacteria in their stools. And if they are not following the hygiene protocol, and they are, just passing stool anywhere, that stool will contaminate food and water, and other people will not eat or drink from that. We be the ones to now develop severe cholera disease. So that's why it's so important that we get it under control. And so most people, after taking the contaminated food or water, they will have the bacteria in their stool for 1 to 10 days, and so it can be there, and even though they don't have symptoms. But if they are not paying attention to hygiene and there's no adequate sanitation, they can infect other people around them. And actually, that's how the epidemic normally starts. Because somebody has it and the person is not paying attention to hygiene and good sanitation, then other people get their food and water contaminated, and then it becomes an epidemic. All right. So that is that. So what are the symptoms of cholera? Already we said it's a diarrhea disease. So the person passes watery stools, very watery stool, and we tend to describe this stool like flake of rice and water. That's the kind of picture you get. So in other words, it's so watery with only a tiny piece of the stool, and the person is also vomiting at the same time. From my culture where I come from in Yoruba, we tend to call it amunigba mechi. In other words, Yoruba people are very descriptive with the word. What they're saying is that the person is having two bowls. So you have a bowl in front where you're vomiting into, and you have a bowl at the back where you are passing to, because literally somebody who has cholera is vomiting and passing water to simultaneously. And that tells you why it is so easy for them to become quickly dehydrated. So they get into severe dehydration, and they can die, because what kills people in diarrhea, like I always say from all our previous episodes of diarrhea discussion, is the dehydration, is the shock, is the water and that is coming, and the electrolytes that the person is losing as they are losing the water, losing the from vomiting and from the watery stools. They get so dehydrated quickly and go into shock, and the person can die. But luckily, some people don't um, have that severe symptoms. So some don't even have any symptoms at all. But those who have the severe symptoms, they are the one that can develop severe dehydration, and they are the one that can die if we don't treat them quickly. The best thing is to treat them quickly, and the treatment is to replace what they are losing. We have to get their fluid and electrolytes back, and then we have to also treat the bacteria and the toxin and get rid of it, and that's what we do with antibiotics. So it is a very virulent disease, and people get diarrhea, cholera diarrhea, from it taking contaminated water and food. It is as simple as that. It's not like respiratory, like Ebola, like COVID or other things. So this time around, it is from food and water, and it is once the food and water are contaminated with the bacterium Vibrio cholerae from somebody else who has cholera, who is not paying attention to hygiene, and allow the feces one way or the other, or the that has the bacteria to mix with other people's food and water. That is how people get cholera. So you can see why it's a disease of poverty, because if there is adequate hygiene in place, then that should not have happened at all. When people have taken the contaminated food and water, they can develop the infection within 12 hours, so it's something that it happens so rapidly, which is the challenge with cholera outbreak. We are racing against time. We're racing against time because once somebody takes the contaminated food and water, they can start having symptoms within 12 hours. If we don't treat them, they can also die within 1 hour, within 24 hours. So it is a race against time in terms of both the infection and also in terms of the treatment. And that is why people can die from cholera, because we really need to move very fast. We need to recognize that this is somebody is having cholera, and we need to treat it fast. So sometimes it can be up to 5 days before some people will have the symptoms of cholera. Cholera is a disease that has been with us for so long. Even right from the 19th century, there has been a lot of pandemics in the world due to cholera all over the world, until people were able to develop the antibiotics that can treat it, and as well understand the importance of safe water and sanitation. And that is why it's a condition that is so rare in developed countries, because when you have access to safe water, you have access to good sanitation, you're not going to have diarrhea. So diarrhea of cholera is a disease of poverty happening in places where there's limited access to the to good safe water and hygiene. All right. So cholera can be epidemic or can be endemic. So when we talk about epidemic, we're talking about something that is affecting many people, several people at the same time. And so it can be endemic when it's just a particular group of people. But whichever one, we're talking about people dying, we're talking about people being very ill, and so it is something that we really need to get rid of. Okay, so we've talked a lot about cholera, what causes cholera, how it is contaminated, and we also talk about the symptoms of cholera. I think the most important thing I need to talk about is how do we treat cholera. Okay, so once somebody has cholera, how do we treat it? But the most important thing is the good news is that cholera is very easily treatable. Is one of the easiest conditions to treat. The danger is not recognizing it and not start the treatment on time. So it's about time. If we can get the diagnosis done quickly and we get the treatment on, we're going to be able to save people. But remember, people can die within hours once they have cholera. People can start having cholera symptoms within 12 hours of taking the contaminated food and water, and then people can die within 24 hours if they are not properly treated. So it's something that is treatable, but we have to get the diagnosis and we have to get the treatment quickly, which is another challenge because sometimes people just, oh, it's not just diarrhea, it's not just vomiting, and people don't take it as serious. But if we take it seriously, then we're able to get it properly treated. The most important thing in cholera is to rehydrate. Okay, so for those who have mild to moderate symptoms of the diarrhea disease in cholera, they just take their ORS. ORS is so easy. I mean, it's available. I always encourage that every mother should always have at least one sachet at home at anytime tea, because sometimes children can have diarrhea overnight, even adults as well. So always have your ORT sachet at home so that anytime the diarrhea, you just get it, put it inside 1 liter of freshly boiled, safe, potable water. That's so important because if you go put your ORS in contaminated water, you're just going to multiply the infection. So it has to be potable, clean water. Preferably, we ask you to just boil it so that you are safe and sure. And then the instruction on how to mix your ORC, which is the oral rehydration salt with the or with the water to make it oral rehydration solution is very simple. Most of them is as simple as just getting the amount of water, maybe 1 liter of water, and then you open the sachet, put it inside, shake it, and that's it, and you start drinking. So for people that have mild to moderate symptoms, we can just give them oral rehydration, and that is all they need. But if it is very severe, the person cannot drink, and some people with severe cholera disease, they won't be able to drink, and they are vomiting at the same time they are passing water through, and they are you see, especially for children who don't have so much water reserve anyway, you see them, get dried up almost in front of you. So with severe dehydration, for those who are going to severe dehydration, unable to tolerate oral rehydration, we have to give them intravenous rehydration. So those are the people that need to be in the hospital, or those are the people that the health workers need to come over to where they are and quickly put in intravenous line and set up the drip, and we start rehydrating them through intravenous fluid so that we can quickly get them rehydrated. The most important thing, just like in any case of diarrhea, could it be viral, could it be bacteria? The most important thing in diarrhea is rehydration. I always want to emphasize that because I get a lot of questions. I'm not certain my baby has been having diarrhea and I'm given I don't know who started the pandemic of any diarrhea, go and take flagyl. I don't know who started it. That person really needs to be imprisoned. Please stop giving people flagyl for heavy diarrhea. It's wrong and it's antibiotic abuse. So I see a lot of mothers tell me I've given this antibiotic, I've given this, and I'm looking for one thing which they have not given. They have not given oral rehydration solution. They have not given oral zinc. That is the most important thing to give, not antibiotics, not flagyl, not diastop, not tetracycline, which you should never give to children below the age of 8 years anyway. So the most important thing to give when a child is having diarrhea, could it be from cholera? Could it be from any of the viruses? The most important thing to do is to give fluid, is to replace the water and the electrolytes. You cannot replace with ordinary water because the child is not just losing water. The child is also losing what we call electrolytes, like sodium, like potassium, like bicarbonate. So that is why ORS is different, because in ORS we've added all these things. We've added the sodium, we've added the potassium, we've added the bicarbonate. So when you give your child ORS, you are replacing the water and the electrolytes. Very important. So please, the most important thing to give to anybody who is having diarrhea, whether it is cholera or not cholera, is to rehydrate them. I'm deliberately re-emphasizing it because I want that message. If that's the only message people take away from today's broadcast, I will consider my work done. You must rehydrate people. It is the shock, it is the severe dehydration that kills. Most times, mothers focus on the watery stool. The child is passing stool 8 times, 100 times, and they really want something to stop the stool. And I always tell them that is not the focus of the treatment. We are not trying to stop the stool. That's actually not our goal. Our goal is to, because the stool is not going to kill the person. All right. The goal is to make sure that what the person is losing in the stool, the water, the electrolytes, we are replacing it. And we only do that through ORS for those who are able to drink, and by giving intravenous fluid for those who are unable to drink. So that is the most important thing to do. If somebody is having diarrhea and they are thirsty, it means they are dehydrated, because you may wonder, oh, how do I know that this person needs to be ready? Anybody who is still passing water stool, even if they tell you they don't have any symptoms, they are already mildly dehydrated. That is the minimum. They're already mildly dehydrated, just without any symptoms. But by the time they're telling you they are thirsty, they are moderately dehydrated, so they must be drinking. And if they are now even so drowsy, they are becoming too weak, they can't lethargic, they can't even drink, it means they are severely dehydrated. And those are the ones that we have to even sometimes put on intravenous fluid. So they may need to drink a lot of, and sometimes they need a lot of the water, because, like I said, in the cholera, they are losing so much so quickly. So we really need to give. Sometimes for adults, they may need up to 6 liters. That is about 6 sachets of ORS. And for children, 1 liter, 2 liters. So just let them keep drinking. They can't drink too much. Let them just drink and drink and drink. The most important thing is to rehydrate those who have diarrhea from cholera. And if it is severe, we have to put on IV fluids. And after we give out the fluids, the next treatment is antibiotics. So unlike all the other time we talk about diarrhea in children, and we'll tell you no need for antibiotics, these are the exceptions. Cholera is one of the exceptions. Shigella is another exception. Amoebiasis. There are few exceptions when it comes to diarrhea illnesses that you have to give antibiotics. And diarrhea due to bacteria, due to what we call parasites, those are the ones that we have to give antibiotics. So in cholera, we give antibiotics. And if it is severe diarrhea, severe cholera type, we have to give them antibiotics, because we want to quickly kill the bacterium, the Vibrio cholerae. We want to quickly kill it, because if we don't kill it, the mechanism by which it causes its diarrhea is that it is binding to the cells of the intestine, and it's causing a lot of secretion. So if we don't get rid of that bacteria, the diarrhea will go on for a long time. So we just have to keep rehydrating the person. So while we're rehydrating, we also want to make sure that the cause of the loss of fluid, which is the bacterium itself, we have to deal with it, and we give antibiotics. And cholera respond well to antibiotics. There are lots of different antibiotics that we can quickly give to get rid of the bacteria. All right. So, and at the same time, as we are treating the acute illness, we're rehydrating, we're giving antibiotics, we have to make sure that we start paying the attention to the hygiene, because the person who is having the cholera, who is having the diarrhea, can still infect other people, because the cholera is in the bacteria is in the stool. So if they pass through and they are not paying attention to the hygiene, we'll be treating one person and another person is going to get sick. So we need to be simultaneously paying attention to hygiene, so washing their hands, making sure they are properly and safely disposing the stool, the feces. So this is very, very important. And that is because cholera tends to occur in epidemic, so which means that many people are sick at the same time. And all the other people in that vicinity are at risk as well. So we need to make sure we go on after this water, make sure the water is clean. They have to boil the water. Hand washing, very important. There must be proper toilets or sanitation facility. So this will help to prevent further uh, cases of bacteria, of the bacteria being spread through feces, through what's contaminated water. So it's so important. And so when they're eating food, we need to make sure that the food is properly cooked and is covered. See people, I see a lot of people in Lagos eating, you see somebody cooking food next to a gutter. They are cooking food and people are staying around there and buying the food, and is from the person cooking is next to a very dirty drainage, we'll call it gutter. So that is how things like this happen. We need to make sure that the food are properly cooked, covered, eating hot, and all that, and washed before and after. When people go to toilet, they wash their hands after, before, making sure that the water they drink, most of the so-called pure water people drinks are not pure at all. Most of them are contaminated. I'm sure we've seen some of the news where we see police raiding some of these so-called manufacturers of water, bottled water, or sachet water, and you can see that they are just taking this water from dirty container and just selling it, and people just have so much faith and they just drink those water. Please boil your own water. If you can't boil water, you can put things like water guard, which is like chlorine kind of, when you put this in the water, it kills all the germs straight away. At least we need to do that. Let's make sure we cook our food. All this food we're buying from people, you don't even know whether they themselves are not paying attention to their hygiene, and they're selling contaminated food and water. So we really need to pay attention to hygiene. And of course, for our mothers, for the babies, please let's breastfeed them. This is one of the reasons why you need to breastfeed your baby, because you are breastfeeding your baby exclusively before the age of 6 months. They won't take water. And when they don't take water, they are never going to have the cholera, because the cholera is from the contaminated water of food. And your breast milk can never be contaminated, okay? Because your breast milk is sterile, straight from the source, straight to the mouth of the baby. Your baby is never going to have cholera. So if at all there's any reason why you want to exclusive breastfeed, it is also to avoid cholera, because babies on exclusive breastfeeding are never going to have cholera, because they're not going to get contaminated water at all. So that's so important. Also for children, we need to give them Hora zinc. Hora zinc is important. I always tell them the zinc is not an antibiotic, and the zinc is not meant to stop the diarrhea. The zinc is actually what we call adjuvant therapy, something that is helpful for future purposes. So when we give zinc, it helps to heal the lining of the intestine quickly. It also helps to prevent future episodes of diarrhea. It also prevents future episodes of pneumonia. So the zinc is not meant to stop the stool, because a lot of mothers also tell me, oh, I've been giving my baby the zinc and the child is still having diarrhea. The zinc is not a something to stop the stool. It's not something to make the stool to stop. It is just to make sure that the intestinal lining are healed quickly, and that it will prevent future episodes of diarrhea and prevent future episodes of pneumonia as well. We don't recommend just giving everybody antibiotics when there's cholera, like, I'm going to take antibiotics so that I won't have cholera. No, that is not recommended, because like I said, all this habit of us just giving antibiotics anyhow is actually going to cause what we call antibiotic resistance, and that is going to create its own problem on its own. So we're not going into that today. All right. So that is how we treat cholera. The most important thing is rehydration, antibiotics, and then we need to talk about hygiene, both for food, water, and all that. But let's now talk, as I'm going to round up now, let's talk about how do we prevent cholera. Like I said, and I think the answer is already clear from everything I've said. Because cholera is one condition that we know how it happens, we know the cause, we know how it happens, and so it is so easily preventable. It is very easily treatable. It is easily preventable as well. Okay, like I've already mentioned, it is from contaminated food and water, so we need to make sure that that doesn't happen. And the prevention is not just only for individuals, but also for our governments, and also for everybody. So what in medicine, we do talk about three levels of prevention. We talk about primary prevention, secondary prevention, tertiary prevention. So primary prevention is let it not even happen at all. Secondary prevention is if the disease has started, we already have an epidemic, there's a cholera outbreak. How do we stop many people from dying from it? And of course, tertiary sometimes how to minimize the complication. But luckily we don't tend to have much of complication. So maybe a lot of tertiary may not apply to cholera, but definitely the primary and the secondary prevention are so critical when it comes to prevention and control of cholera disease. Please save water. Our government, we should have safe water. And in this is 21st century, we shouldn't be talking about safe water anymore. It should be taken for granted that everybody in the world should have access to safe water. But we know that is not the reality in some of our cities, in Lagos, in places where there's high rates of urbanization and slums. So we really need to look for ourselves. Okay, so please, at least your drinking water, boil it. Boil it. For the children, please boil the water. All right, if you can't boil, use um water guard or any of those chemical agents to sterilize the water. Please avoid buying the so-called pure water, but some of the so-called bottled water, there are a lot of fakes, there are a lot of pirated ones, so you can never be sure, even though they are carrying the name of a big brand. Unless you bought it from the brand directly in the factory, you can never be sure it is not somebody sitting in the backyard buying other people's bottles, old bottles, and just filling it up with any water they like. So please pay attention to your water and make sure it is boiled or sterilized with water chemical agent like water guard and all that. Secondly, let's make sure we when we want to pass to sanitation is so important. Minimum we should have like toilets, even if it is not water closet, at least even if it is a latrine, but at least let it be something where when you pass the stool it is covered. All these open defecation, I know people that live in places where you have a lot of these water slums. Some of them they pass the stool directly into that same water. It is that same water they are going to get their drinking water from. I mean, it's terrible. I've been to Makoko, we've done outreaches to Makoko, and this is what we saw live and direct. I hope things are better now, but it's been a while. So, but that is a template for cholera outbreaks to happen. So let's make sure sanitation, there should be no open defecation, we use proper toilet and all that is so important. And of course, when we go to the toilet, coming back, we need to wash our hands before we make the food, before we eat our food, we need to wash our hands. At least we learned that during the COVID period, we're all washing our hands, but I think we're beginning to forget again. And because maybe COVID is over now, but please, let's remember the lessons we've learned during COVID. Let's always wash our hands before making food, before eating food, after going to the toilets, coming out of the toilets. Let's wash our hands with soap and water. Very important. Let's keep doing that. Those are ways by which we can prevent cholera. It's so easy to prevent. It's so easy to treat. So that is primary prevention. And of course, food. Let's prepare our food properly and let's cover food. When food are not being used, and preferably let's make our food and eat it straight away. Let's not cook food and store it for a long time, because that gives opportunity for germs to go in and and cause contamination and all that. So food should be prepared fresh, eating as soon as possible, and hands should be washed, and the food should be properly cooked. And cooking would destroy most of these bacteria, and when we eat when they are so hot, it's very unlikely. But when you leave them and people touch with dirty hands, the bacteria will begin to multiply inside, and that can also lead to diarrhea and cholera disease. Okay, so those are the things we can do in terms of primary prevention of cholera. And now, in terms of secondary prevention, like how do we make sure people don't die? Like we have a cholera outbreak right now in Lagos and some parts of the country. What can we do? Number one, we need to recognize. So somebody is having diarrhea, he's having watery stool around you, or vomiting and passing stool at the same time. Please give them ORS straight away. If they can drink the ORS, please keep encouraging them to drink. But if they are unable to drink, you have to take them to the hospital so that they can get intravenous fluids and antibiotics. We need to report quickly to the government, because the government, if they know there's an outbreak, once 2, 3, 4 people in a particular place are having the same disease, it's already at least an endemic condition. It's already something that is happening. And so that is when we need to tell them at the local government or at the health centers. And that's why governments, they keep track of how many cases of these diseases is happening here, how many cases of these diseases are being reported, because that is how governments know when there's an outbreak, and they can quickly move in and start getting things. And that is when we do give cholera vaccine, because a lot of people are asking about cholera vaccine. You don't need to go take cholera vaccine if you are not in a place where there's a cholera outbreak. Okay, so cholera vaccine is reserved for when there's an outbreak, or people who are traveling towards places. If you're going to go to where there's an outbreak, of course, wisdom say you should not travel. But if you have to travel to where there's an outbreak of cholera, then you will benefit from taking cholera vaccine. So those are the only instances where people should be taking cholera vaccine. Cholera vaccine is not something you should just go and be taking because there's cholera outbreak in Lagos, but you are not living or staying around people who are having cholera. And please don't go give it to the children as well. So, but for those of us who are not living in those areas, we should remember the same wash, water, and sanitation hygiene. We should keep paying attention to that. It's everyday thing. COVID, cholera, it's still the same principles. Let's wash our hands, boil our water, let's pay attention to hygiene. That's all we need to do. And we hope our government will address the bigger issues of how our houses are built, water supply, and all those kind of stuff, and also monitoring. These are not information for parents or people like yourself listening to me. These are information for the government. They know what to do. We just hope that they can do it. All right, just a little bit of a cholera vaccine. Most of them are oral vaccine. In other words, you just take it by mouth. So, and there are different kind of them and all that. But usually the governments know what to do on how to get these oral cholera vaccines once there is an outbreak. But please don't go to the center disturbing them that you want to take cholera vaccine for your children. You don't need to. It's only in those places where there's an epidemic. So I will leave the government part, because I think I'm really talking more to people like parents and children and families. So I'll focus on our own part, and the government people know their own parts and what they need to do. We just hope that they do it. And so thank you so much for joining me today. I've been talking about cholera. It's a terrible, terrible acute diarrhea disease from a bacterium called Vibrio cholerae. It can lead to death within hours if it's severe and not properly treated. It is easily preventable. It is easily treatable. So on no account should anybody be dying from cholera. Okay, all we need to do is pay attention to our water, pay attention to our sanitation, pay attention to our hygiene. And if you know somebody who is having, if you know any area where there's a cholera outbreak, please go to the health center, call the government agencies, let them be aware so that they can move in quickly and get it under control so that people will not keep dying from it. So thank you so much for listening to me. If you have any questions on today's topic of cholera, please feel free to go to Ask the Pediatrician Facebook group and post your questions there. Myself, my colleagues will be there to answer your question. All right. And also, if you have any question whatsoever about the health of your children or your own health, you are welcome to post your question in our Facebook group from Mondays to Saturday. Ask the Pediatrician Facebook group. You cannot miss our group on Facebook. You will see us there and we'll be able to answer. We are unable to take question and answer on Instagram, on YouTube. Apologies for that, but the way the structure of those platforms are, we are unable to do that. Thank you so much for those of you who are always calling us out and tagging us. But like I always say, health issues is not a democracy of opinion, which is how most of those social media platforms are structured. Instagram and all those places, it's everybody just giving an opinion and there's no control over it. And sometimes people give wrong answer and it is left to the person who is asking questions to become more confused and to pick which one, which is why we don't like to be part of such. So, but if you come to our Facebook group, it's a regulated platform, so you can be sure that whatever answer you're getting on Ask the Pediatrician Facebook group or ATP Family is from a professional, from our representative, and you can take it to the bank. You can trust, which is what we actually promote. So we want to make sure you have the right information to take the right decision. We are not an hospital, we are not an online hospital. We are just to make sure, like your first line, to make sure you know what to do, when to go to the hospital, what to do, and more importantly, health promotion, prevention. We don't want even children to be sick at all. We want to empower you with all the information and resources you need to make sure the children are healthy in the first instance so that they don't even have to be sick. But even if they should fall sick, at least then you know what to do. So feel free to check out our Facebook group, check out our podcast channel, check out our YouTube channel, and keep learning and keeping our children safe. So till I come your way again next time on the same channel, talking about another important topic, and I hope cholera outbreak will be over by then. It is going to celebrate is saying have a wonderful day and keep being healthy. Just bye for me.
Are you a mother, father, or you are involved in caring for children? If yes, then listen to Ask the Pediatricians every Thursday by 10 a.m. for insightful discussion on popular child health topics such as dangerous child health practices, immunization, infant feeding, developmental milestones, and so much more. You also get to ask questions on these topics and listen to answers to real-life child health issues by a pediatrician. Ask the Pediatricians Foundation is devoted to health education and information of parents and caregivers of children in the community to support you in raising healthy children. Don't miss Ask the Pediatricians with Dr. Gbemi because it's informative, educative, and interactive. Ask the Pediatricians Hour, the program for caring parents.